Here's the truth. People are leaving Davenport, Iowa, and it may not be for what you think it is. Today, we're gonna cover the ugly truth and as to why people are leaving. And by the way, they may be leaving, but they may not be leaving as far away as you might think. So let's just hop right in. Why are people leaving Davenport, Iowa? Well, it's a multitude of factors, and I think I've narrowed it down to a couple of those factors. The first one is something that happens and talked about quite often, and that is car registration. Now, car registration in Davenport, Iowa is quite expensive, to be quite honest with you. It is a percentage of the list price of the car on top of a tonnage fee, which is about 40 cents for every 100 pounds. And it's just something that people are annoyed with. But not only that, when you go to register a car, if you didn't buy it from a dealership and it was a private sale, here in Scott County, which is where Davenport is located, you have to have a notarized bill of sale. Now that's something that's kind of unique with Scott County that not every county in Iowa needs, but here it needs it. And the reason I know about this is because I bought a truck a few years ago, and come to find out, I go down to the DMV, I didn't have a notarized bill of sale and they would not register my car for me. Now, if you're not familiar, Davenport is located in Iowa. And as a part of being located in Iowa, we do have 4 seasons. And one of those seasons, I hear time and time again as to why people want to leave Davenport, and you probably guessed it, that season is winter. Now, when I say people are leaving, it doesn't necessarily leave forever. So we do have what we call snowbirds, usually people that are in retirement age and they like to go south for the winter, hence the name. So they go down to like Arizona, Texas, Florida, spend the winter down there, and then come on back up for the summer, spring, and fall here in Davenport, Iowa. But they're not the only ones. We do have people moving because they just cannot stand the winter. But what does the winter actually look like here in Davenport? Well, we get pretty cold temperatures. This year we had about a week of very severe negative temperatures. I believe there was a -17, and I actually was walking in that. So I challenged myself to go for a walk every single day of the year. And as a part of that, it doesn't matter what the weather's like. So I was out there walking -17, -20 degree temperatures. And trust me, it was cold. So I understand why somebody would not like that. But it definitely is a reason that people are leaving. But it's not something that Davenport can really control because the weather is really the weather. And speaking of the weather, yes, another reason is weather related, but not directly. And what is that reason? Well, that reason is the potholes that show up all over the city and don't ever seem to get fixed. So if you're not familiar with what a pothole is, during the winter, water and ice get underneath the pavement. When it freezes, it pops up and gets bigger and pops the pavement out, and then you get a pothole. And for some reason, Davenport just seems to not get around to fixing a lot of those. I have friends in particular that have experienced this. He was driving up what we call Brady Street, and he slammed into a pothole, bent up the rim of his tire, and had to replace the whole thing. And they didn't want to replace it. There was something about the city might do that. It's not true as far as I know, because he asked about it. Now, if I haven't convinced you to not move to Davenport and you're still thinking you want to come here, but you're really not sure where you want to be, well, I am here to help. I am a licensed realtor here in Davenport, Iowa. I'd love to help you out, and my number is popping up down below if you have any questions and you want to know exactly what neighborhood you should be in. Give me a call, I'd love to help you. Now, I hear this time and time again as to reasons why people want to leave, and that is because they are bored. They feel like there is nothing to do here, and I can see kind of where they're coming from, and it really depends on your perspective. The folks that say this are typically from much larger cities than Davenport. Davenport only has about 100,000. In the Quad Cities, which is the metro area that it's within, is only about 400,000. So when you look at it from that perspective, yeah, there's really not a lot to do. But me personally, I came from a small town of about 1,500 people. So in perspective, there is a ton to do comparatively. And really, I started seeing this when I was an engineering intern, and folks were coming in from all over because interns come from all different colleges. And a lot of them were saying they were just kind of bored because there was nothing to do. Whereas me and some of the other folks that were from small towns had the best summer of our entire lives. I can say that truthfully because we were going out all the time, having a great time, going to restaurants, bars, museums, all sorts of different things. I really, really liked it, but that's really where I started seeing that trend. And again, I get it if you're coming from a large city and you're always busy and got things to do, but the thing of it is if you're looking for something to do in Davenport, you usually can find it. And if you're not, well, you don't have that hustle and bustle going around you all the time. So it's a cool dynamic, and I understand why people say it's one of the reasons they want to leave, but I also understand that a lot of people really kind of like that. Now, Davenport sits right on the Mississippi River, and of course, the Mississippi River is going to flood. And people get pretty worried about the flooding here in Davenport, and it's a reason that they say they want to leave. Now, it's not necessarily that their house is flooding. What typically happens when the Mississippi floods, it really disrupts traffic flow, specifically in downtown Davenport, because they refuse to put up any kind of flood wall. So when the river crests, it floods the entire downtown, well, not the entire downtown area, but the main River Drive area up maybe a couple blocks into downtown. And it's a really pain in the butt when that happens. So I get it, it disrupts people's days, and I understand why people want to leave Davenport because of it. But most houses are typically going to be fine. And if you're moving here and you're worried about it, well, before you purchase a house and you're worried about flooding, we always make sure that the home is not in a floodplain. And even if it is, mortgages will still lend out, but you do have to buy flood insurance. And the majority of the time, it's not the Mississippi. It's usually some of the streams that go through town, like Duck Creek. That's a good example because they will overflow a lot faster than the Mississippi if we get a bunch of rain, because the Mississippi is just such a large river. It takes a large volume of water to actually make it flood. Now, this next one actually kind of hits home to me, and honestly, it's probably the reason I will leave Davenport eventually, and that is to really just get out of the city. I, in particular, want to move outside the city, have some acreage, have a nice apple orchard or farm or mini farm or whatever it is. So it is a reason that people leave, because they want to get into either a smaller town, more rural, or just have a hobby farm. So it is a reason that people are leaving. I will say that it is super convenient to have a lot of the amenities right here in Davenport, but just having that my own piece of land in my own area to farm and garden, I think would be amazing. And again, this is probably the one reason that I will leave Davenport at some point, but I probably won't be moving too far away because I still like the amenities that Davenport has to offer. Now, another reason that I hear people leave in Davenport is really not because of the city, but more so to do with what's around the city. I just talked about people getting outside the city to have a hobby farm, but what's outside the city as well, or lack thereof, is national parks, national forests, or anything of that sort in public land is fairly limited even on the county level. And it's one of my gripes of living here in eastern Iowa, is there's not a lot of public land, and the public land that there is pretty overcrowded because of the population center here in the Quad Cities and in Davenport. So you get a bunch of your friends out there, but I'm not saying that it's non-existent. It's definitely still existent. You have places like Scott County Park, which is just north of town. You have Loud Thunder, which is on the Illinois side. And you also have Wildcat Den, which is over by Muscatine and Bluegrass. So you have options. It's just kind of limited. And people that are leaving because of this reason really like either mountains or beaches, and we really don't have a lot of either one of those. Now, obviously, people have their own reasons for moving or coming to the Quad Cities and Davenport. And if you're one of those ones that has a reason to move here, well, I'd love to help you out to find that perfect neighborhood for you and your family. So my number is popping up down below, and hit me up if you have any questions. But if you're just curious what Davenport actually looks like, well, check out this video right here.